In this lesson, we're going to study the song Lagrima by Francisco Tárrega. It's really a brilliant piece written for the classical guitar. He wrote many preludes, and this is one of the most famous ones. And we're going to look at this song in many different ways. We're first going to look at just playing the melody, then we're going to look at the bass line, and then we're going to look at how voices are in the piece. There's certain melody notes, and then there are inside voices and there are bass lines. There's these different parts that there's a lot of interplay, and it's really nice to be aware of what notes should be brought out, which notes are important, and what notes are different voices that should have a different sort of emphasis. We're going to look at how you can phrase different parts of the song. And then finally, we're going to look at left-hand preparation and other possible fingerings that you could look at. So there's so many things that we can study with this piece. It's amazing. And this will be a really great way for you to learn the fingerboard and learn a brilliant piece of music in the meantime. Now let's take a look at the melody of the song and the simplified version of it here that we're going to play. Keep in mind that this piece is in 3/4, so the quarter note gets one count. Let's look at the major part of the melody first, in the first 8 bars, 2 8-bar phrases in the song. And it's going to go from a C sharp and ascend on the high string. It sounds like this. So we're going to use a different fingering when we play all the rest of the accompaniment around this, but getting familiar with just the melody will really help you to know what to bring out as you're playing the piece. So let's try it together. 1, 2, 3. C sharp goes to D, E, and then a B, 2, 3. Repeat that. Now all the way up to high A. Pinky's going to play the 12th fret. Then third finger plays 11th, 9th, shift down to the 7th, and then shift down to the 4th with your third finger. That's a nice left-hand fingering for that. You're going to find actually when we play the melody, it's going to be pinky. It's going to be a guide finger. It's going to take you through all those pitches, the first 2 phrases, or first 4 bars. See if you can practice that. Then pinky all the way up high. Then finally we're going to change. And then instead of the 4th fret, we're going to use the 2nd fret, or 2nd string, for some of the pitches that are written there. So keep in mind, the pitches will change, but the sound is what I want you to get in your ear. Let's look at the minor section of the piece. So we're going to go from the key of A major to the key of A minor. I'll play the melody for you. So you notice the melody is much more active in the minor section. We're moving around quite a bit. We're going to do a lot of scale motion, so practicing alternating index and middle is really going to be helpful. See if you can get the motor running with index and middle. These first few notes, just practice that much on its own. Alternating. Then at the end of the phrase, we have this. They're a nice fingering, although we're going to change the fingering in the song. It would be pinky, 2nd, 1st, then pinky, 2nd, 1st. So just one position shift. 10th fret, 8th, 7th, shift down to 5th fret with your pinky. So we're in 2nd position. All right, let's give it a try together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 8th notes. 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Here comes that scale. 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that gives you an idea of how the melody sounds. Next, let's check out the bass line. So we're going to start with these notes. And I'm going to keep that all in first position. We're going to move up the neck later on. But for now, it's going to go 2, 4, 1, and then 1 on the low string. So the notes are A, B, a C sharp to a G sharp. That happens again. Now I'm going to play on the second string, 2, 0, 2, then second string 0, second fret. Then interesting here, the second to last measure of the first section has some really interesting motion. So let's try that section together. Ready, play. That repeats. Then second string, third string, second string, E to F sharp. Then we have this E, a D sharp, E, D natural, C sharp, A. Then when the minor section happens, we start on the A again to G sharp. Then we're going to go C natural, D, B, G sharp. D, then ascend A, B, C, D, D, C, D, G sharp, A, and it repeats. Play the first A strong and the second lightly. So that gives you an idea of the melody and the bass line. And it's really important to get those in your ears so when you're playing, there's a lot of clarity. You can bring out those parts really clearly. Now let's look at the next step. Let's add in more of the arrangement now. And we're going to change the fingerings. We're going to look more at the different parts of the song. But let's just look at certain things that are important and what you want to emphasize and things you can pull back. And when there are what I call call and response phrases. So in the first section of the piece, we have this interval of a tenth that moves up. It sounds very beautiful. Now that's the primary voice, the melody and the bass moving there. And then there's this inside voice. And if you look at the sheet music, it's colored there. That has a red color. And so try to bring the melody out and play this open string lightly. It's what they call a pedal tone. It keeps being repeated. So I'm trying to play with my index finger on the second string lightly. The same thing when you play up high, there's this descending line. Play the 9th fret soft, then it switches to the 7th fret of the second string, and then the 9th fret of the second string. And these are all melody notes. Then play this note, even though it's a melody note, try to make sure you don't overplay the high string here. The inner voice is the 6th fret. And then here once again, lightly on the high string. So just study that and get familiar with what the primary voices are and some of those inside voices. Then you can really hear, if I just play the melody part, 2, 3. Then when it goes up high, you're basically hearing this. So there's a little bit of ambiguity at the very end as there's motion that moves around, but you can still be clear with not overemphasizing that high string. You just want to play that lightly, so it's very graceful. The second half of the piece is a really great example of call and response. Here's the first phrase, the call. Here's a response. So you have one idea and then there's a response after. Try to play the first phrase with a different tone than the second. And typically you could play the first phrase nice and loud, then soft. Loud. Here there's sort of the melody is actually played on the upbeats. When we practice the melody, we try them on the downbeats, but you have this really beautiful section it's the third bar of the second section here, where you play, then a response. There's a little bit of a call and response there. Not as obvious as the first one, but it's still there. But what you want to try to do is get as much sustain. I leave my pinky down and I reach down with my first finger, then I move my pinky, so I do this little motion down, creeping down the neck, trying to get sustain. And those notes you want to play nice and light. Then back, this is melody though, at the end of that measure. Then strong. Then once again we have a pedal tone, we're going to make that soft, 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 soft. And this is all strong, with a nice tone, not too hard on the high note, then soft, melody note, accompaniment, melody note, accompaniment, then together, melody and accompaniment together. So you can see the last two measures of the second part of the phrase, the B section. It's loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft. So you're hearing a melody note, then accompaniment, melody note, accompaniment, melody note, accompaniment. It's really interesting to think that way when you play. Instead of just looking at all the notes on the page having the equal importance, you're trying to emphasize different things and bring it out in the music. So those are the different voices in the song. Now that we've looked at some of the harmony and the voices in the piece, let's look at how we can shape the phrases. So if I play the first theme, really the first phrase is, then the second phrase, then for measure 5, this is one long phrase coming all the way down. And basically you want to start that strong and gradually get softer. So I like to think of this as the short phrases. It's just these little arcs. And then the second arc. And it's a really good chance in this piece to have an echo where you play the first phrase strong. This is accompaniment, and then soft, and echo. So some things that I do sometimes to make some variations happen, I play, let's say the first time I play through this, there's a repeat. So the first I'm going to start strong, and then that second phrase soft. Then when the repeat, I do the reverse. I play the first phrase soft and the second a little bit louder. So I try to have some variations. Another thing that I do is take a little bit of a weight, add weight and a pause on certain notes for emphasis. Now here, listen to the high phrase. Just that little extra time taken with that phrase is really nice to add for variation. So think about how, when you start to understand where the phrases are, how you can shape them and also have some variations when things repeat. Now in the second half of the piece, we're going to have the call and response, which I mentioned before. So a short phrase that ends, here's a response. Next phrase that ends. Then the final phrase, once again, a big arc, a building, coming down. So you can feel that shaping. Let me play measure 13 so you can hear what I mean. I'll start pretty soft and ascend. Then strong, strongest, less, less, least. You can also pull back the tempo a little bit at the very end. So that is an idea of how you can shape the phrases in the piece. All right, now let's get to the heart of the piece and look at the fingerings that we're going to use. And we're going to start by using first finger on the 4th string on the note A, 2nd fret, and then pinky on the high string. And what I want to do here is we're just going to use the same fingering to move up to 4 and 5, and then 6 and 7. Then we're going to use, in the right hand, thumb is going to play the 4th string and the 3rd string for the first 4 bars. And then index is going to play the 2nd string, middle is going to play the high string. So we get this fingering. Thumb and middle, index, thumb and middle, index, thumb and middle, index. Then it moves down, thumb and middle, index, thumb, index. So I'll play that again. So we have guide fingers, right? The 1st and 4th finger are just guiding their way up, not leaving the string, staying in place as it moves. Let's try it together. Ready, play. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3. Repeat. A little softer. So practice that first phrase again and again to get really comfortable with it. Remember to not play too loud, that inner voice. We looked at where the voices were. Try to not play too loud with that 2nd string. Now when you get to measure 5, here's the trickiest part of the piece, I think. And what we're going to do is use some unusual fingerings here to have a lot of, as much sustain as we can get. So we jump all the way up to 9th position, but actually our 2nd finger is going to play the 9th fret. And so we're going to get the pinky on the high A, 12th fret of the high string. 3rd finger is going to play 11th fret of the low string. Try to just get those 2 notes down. Then add your 2nd finger in the 9th fret. Try to play that as a chord. Let's block out the chords first. Then we're going to move our pinky down 1 fret and put our 1st finger down on the 9th fret, leaving the 2nd finger down. Back up 2 frets, but jump up 1 string with your 2nd finger. Now release your 1st finger, move your 2nd finger to the high string, same fret, 7th fret, and then you're going to put your 3rd finger and pinky on the 9th fret. And then you're going to jump down to the 2nd finger on the 3rd string, 6th fret, or the high string open, 7th fret with the 3rd finger at the 2nd string, then the high string, 5th fret. That's measure 5 and 6. I'll block it out again so you can hear it. When you play those last 4 notes, let them ring together. Tarega was one of the first to use on the guitar campanella voicings, where you have fretted notes, high fretted notes, with open strings ringing to other high fretted notes. So here, see how those notes ring together? You want to let them ring as much as possible. Then when we put in the fingering, we're going to use thumb and ring now. So I'm assigning thumb to the low string, index, middle, ring, and the next string is going up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to play thumb and ring, then index, thumb and ring, then index. When we shift down, thumb and ring to middle, then we're going to go to that new fingering, ring in middle again on the high 2 strings. And then here I use my thumb on the 3rd string, middle, index, middle. I like using my thumb there on the 3rd string. Then from here, use your 2nd finger as a guide finger. It moves up 2 frets. Then you put your 3rd finger down. We're now at the 9th fret of the 4th string with the 2nd string. You play the open string. That gives you a chance, the high string, that gives you a chance to move your hand around. And you're going to go 3rd finger on the 8th, 1st finger on the 6th, and 2nd finger on the 7th. 4th string, 3rd, and 2nd. Then use a 2nd string open. Move your hand all the way down, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, pinky plays the 4th fret of the 2nd string. Then we're going to go to an A chord. Beautiful phrase. Just spend a whole practice session just carefully mapping that out, working on it 1 note at a time, 1 fingering at a time. Look at all the continuity and the changes. That second half, again. Try to memorize the fingering. 2 and 4 goes to 1. Okay, and I want to also mention with this the idea of finger preparation. So when you have an open string or you're holding down a few notes and there's another note coming that's going to be with a different finger, you can prepare over the fret that you're going to play with that finger. And so when you're playing these notes, you don't have to have your third finger down right away, but it's right over that note, then it plays, right after you play the open string, but it's right there. So that's the first example of that second fret. Now here, you only need your fourth finger and your third finger down. The second finger then can prepare to play right afterwards. First finger can be preparing while the second finger plays. Then your second finger is going to prepare for this next note. As we play 1 and 4, the second finger leaves the string and moves up. So these little amounts of time that you have to prepare fingers are crucial for getting good sustain. And you can actually practice the choreography of moving your fingers this way. In the score, it's all highlighted in blue for left-hand preparations in the Lagrima study guide. So that section we just looked at, your second finger comes down after 3 and 4 are already playing. Then first finger preps and plays. Second finger would stay in place there. Move down as guide fingers 1 and 4. Second finger preps and then plays. Third finger is preparing now, and that goes to the 9th fret while the second finger jumps up. Pinky's preparing. While the pinky note's ringing, the second finger's moving to get to the 6th fret. Then third finger's preparing, first finger's preparing. Then we're going to shift up. Third finger is preparing there. This open string, you're going to prep everything for this next chord. Same thing, this open note allows you to prepare 2 and 4. So I'm right there, ready to play. And then your second finger prepares for the last note. That sort of thinking ahead is what's going to allow you to really nail everything, get there right in time, and have a nice connected sound. So now finally, let's look at the second half of the piece, the minor section. So we're going to go with 1 and 3, playing this A minor chord with the 3rd fret on the high string. Third finger is going to slide up. You can actually hear the slide, but not very much. Just try to gently bring that out to the 8th fret, and then second finger on the 7th. Open, E7 chord, pinky on the high string, moves up 1 fret. Or actually, you could also use your third finger. I think that's what I wrote in the score, to use 1, 2, and 3. And then you go to your second finger on the A in the bass. You let that note ring, and you play these intervals of a third. 2 and 1, that's a D and an F. Open strings, then use the same 2 fingers, 1 and 3, to play the 4th fret in the second. Then use your second finger to play the 2nd fret with the open string, then back. Then open strings. So those first few notes. Study that fingering and practice. Remember, that's the response. The call, then response. Next section, we're going to play open strings and then play a harmonic with your pinky at the 12th fret. While it's ringing, you're going to prep 7th fret to the 8th fret, the low string to high string. First the pinky, just like we did earlier. Now while that pinky note's ringing, your first finger comes down. While the first finger's ringing at the 4th fret, your pinky comes down to the 5th fret. Then your first finger goes down. So it sort of leapfrogs. To practice that, it's really fun to do, and it gives you a great amount of sustain. I love that part of the piece. It's very dramatic. Then after that, when we get down here, we're gonna end up back again at our E7 chord, but instead of 1, 2, 3, this time we're using 1, 3, and 4. Then we're gonna do the little response line here, this inner voice. So hammer on to the second finger, and then you play the second string open. Remember, hammer on, you just hammer your finger down on the note. Then melody comes back here. So play this soft, strong. You're playing this E twice, but you want to emphasize the second note. Then 1 and 4, just like the beginning, but different fingers now. 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 5 and 7. Now the only bar we have to do in the piece, you bar the 7th fret and you play the scale on top. Pull off, and then 10 to 8, 4th finger to 2nd, then play 7, and on the 2nd string 10, with the bass note here, 8, 7, open strings, then pinky plays the 7th fret of the 2nd string, then 7 and 5 on the low 2 strings with 1 and 3, open string, 2nd string, 1 and 3 play, and then 1st finger moves up to get to this A minor chord. So lots of opportunities in this section to do preps as well. For example, those last notes, while you're playing these open strings, prepare over the 7th fret, then over the 5th and 7th. Open strings, prepare over 1 and 2, you're right there, and then your 1st finger is a guide finger moving you out. So preparing the left hand and looking for good opportunities for guide fingers are very important. So let's play that second half again. Ready, play. Nice and slow. Get ready for the harmonic. Sustain here. Sustain as you move. Strong. Now remember we talked about phrasing. We're starting soft. Build. Pull off. Alternating index and middle there in the right hand. So then we end with the high notes. Prepare. This is a part of the E7 chord again, but just the low 2 strings. Let's look at the right hand fingerings that we can use in the second section of the piece. So I start with a block chord. Then I move up to middle and index. Middle, index, middle, then all 4 fingers, middle, then here thumb and ring, then index, middle, thumb and index, thumb and index, thumb and index, then index and middle, ring finger does the harmonic, thumb, middle, then all 4, middle with a hammer on, then index, thumb and index, middle, then just like the beginning, thumb and middle, index, thumb and middle, index, thumb and middle, index, then middle finger with thumb, pull off, index, middle, thumb, middle. I repeat the middle there and do middle in the high string, thumb and index, then middle, thumb and index, middle, thumb and index, and all 4. So last few notes, I'm doing a lot of that motion of middle, then thumb and index. Then end. First note loud, rolling the chord, then really light with the thumb. So there's a lot to learn in this piece. It's amazing, right? All these different ways of looking at one piece of music that's just a page long. It's not even a 2-minute piece of music. But when you really dive in there, there's so much to learn about interpretation, phrasing, fingerings, how to have left hand preparations, guide fingers, all these different ideas, the different voices. So study each part of the piece separately, and you'll feel so comfortable at the end when you've learned all these things about this piece. When you actually perform it, there'll be so much to think about as you're playing. You just get really, really consumed with the beauty of this piece. Lagrima, the teardrop. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.